Masters of the Air has done a pretty good job of showing the experiences of B-17 bomber crews during their harrowing missions over Europe. Albeit with some added bravado and at times over-the-top action movie tropes. Nevertheless, they are indeed portraying real-life people, and for the most part, stay true to history. This terrifying scene from Episode 3 shows what it was like to bail out of a crippled flying fortress as it spins out of control towards the ground. If you're like me, you want to know what plane this was, and what happened to its crew. Last names don't mean much when I can't recognize the characters' faces because of lack of screen time and them wearing oxygen masks. This B-17 that we watch absorb some pretty intense punishment was Alice from Dallas, whose crew was briefly introduced to us in the first episode en route to Greenland. Something to keep in mind though is that crews often shifted around to other aircraft when needed. It wasn't common for a crew member to fly his entire tour of duty in one aircraft. On this August 17, 1943 raid on Regensburg, Alice from Dallas was piloted by First Lieutenant Roy Frank Claytor, who led the second element of the Low Squadron. German Luftwaffe fighters attacked them at 10:20 over eastern Belgium, but just after they peeled off from their attack, a group of anti-aircraft batteries found the correct range of their formation. A sudden flak burst directly under Alice sent the bomber out of control. Claytor quickly sounded the bailout alarm. The wing on his side was on fire, and the left aileron was smashed in a blaze. He and his co-pilot, Second Lieutenant Raymond Nutting, fought to keep the bomber level as the rest of the crew bailed out. 8 men made it out in total. Claytor and Nutting, as well as Top Turret Tech Sergeant John Bergen and Waist Gunner Staff Sergeant Charles Bailey, all evaded capture and returned to England months later. Navigator Second Lieutenant Oscar Amison and Bombardier Second Lieutenant Kenneth Lorch were both captured and became POWs, though Lorch managed to hide out for 8 months before being caught. The 2 replacement crew that were flying that day were Radio Operator Tech Sergeant William Quinn and Waist Gunner Staff Sergeant Clifford Starkey. Quinn also evaded capture and made it back to England, but Starkey was captured. This is where we see some changes in the show's portrayal. The 2 men that didn't make it out were Tail Gunner Staff Sergeant Edward Musanti and Ball Turret Gunner Staff Sergeant William Hinton. They don't know exactly what happened to them. Hinton, or Babyface, very well could have been trapped in his ball turret, but he was most likely killed by the flak burst. According to Waist Gunner Charles Bailey, Musante was about to bail but hesitated at the last second and told Bailey to go first. At that point, 2 engines were on fire and they were going down fast. He could have stayed too long trying to help Hinton, but we don't know for sure, only that neither made it out. After Bailey jumped, he kept an eye on the plane but only counted 7 other chutes. These types of details are often changed for the sake of film, and I don't sweat them too much. I think it was important that they portrayed the nightmarish situation of the ball turret gunner being trapped in the Sperry turret as the bomber went down. It's horrifying, and it happened. Quinn might not have been the last to bail, but it was also critical to show how difficult it was for men to physically leave the plane with so much centrifugal force pinning them as they hurtled towards Earth. Also, him having to make the heartbreaking decision to leave and save himself knowing he wasn't going to be able to free Babyface in time. I'm sure such decisions haunted airmen for the rest of their lives. The plane exploding the second he escaped was a little too Hollywood for my taste, but I appreciate the themes they did portray. It looks like future episodes will potentially develop branching story arcs following downed airmen evading capture. It should be an interesting perspective to learn more about.